For almost a century now, superheroes have captured the public's imagination in every form, from comics to cartoons, to blockbuster films and television series, and has become a staple in pop culture as deep as any other genre. But what exactly is it that makes them so unique and appealing while other genres rise and fall? Is it just the deep-rooted nostalgia of the people who grew up with these characters, or is there more to discuss regarding its longevity? I've always felt that the best of superhero content is essentially a character study with a sci-fi element. And those two things combined create so much potential for great storytelling, exploring how an average person's life would change forever after attaining powers, or the struggles of being born with them and trying to live a normal life. Watching ordinary people wield the power to do great or terrible things, and the choices they make along the way, will always be interesting to watch unfold. Unfortunately, this incredible concept is far too often overshadowed by the generic good guy versus bad guy plotline, leaving little room for the more refined storytelling within the genre. The character study aspect that I love so much. Stories willing to explore issues more grounded and relatable than just taking out the next big threat. So in my search for better content, I was pleasantly surprised to find The Boys, a show that put a refreshing spin on the superhero genre I've been hoping for, exploring the reality of what superheroes could potentially be. Instead of your normal band of altruistic law-abiding citizens, we have the Seven, an ego-driven, narcissistic group of individuals posing as Earth's mightiest heroes, and a story about the innocent people they have harmed trying to take them down. One of the most enjoyable season 1s I've seen in years, and I was all in for season 2. And after taking the time to establish the potential for great world building, a fascinating plot with a dynamic cast of characters, all with their own backstories and motivations, almost all of it was wasted in season 2. And for the sake of the people who still enjoyed it, I want to be perfectly clear as to why. Consistency is the key to every story ever told, whether it's a show or someone telling you about their day. Setup and payoff are always essential, and if the second part of the story contradicts the events or the logic established in the first part of the story will fall apart. It's almost impossible to stay immersed or invested, even if it's your favorite show or your best friend. And that's what's happened to The Boys. A show I wanted to love due to its concept and characters, and in one season, the logical consistency of almost every character has been ruined. The world building is a joke, and the plot has been rendered pointless and essentially reset by the end. And now we have a show that is all concept and no substance, being praised for what we think it could or should be, rather than acknowledging what it is. Now, this isn't to say that a show can't survive a bad season, but when it comes to character damage, you're attacking the root of our emotional investment. Plots can be repaired, worlds rebuilt, but character assassination is a stain too deep to be removed, a form of treachery too difficult to describe. And that is what I want to focus this video on, taking a closer look at the character damage from least wasted to totally ruined. And where better to start than the Deep, a minor character with major potential that has been embarrassingly pissed away this season and one of the most worthless side plots in history. He's introduced in season 1 as a proud member of the Seven, giving a pep talk to the new recruit Starlight, who has the illusion of the Seven instantly shattered as he manipulates her into giving her a blowjob. And after getting exposed and disgraced, he's kicked out of the Seven. Season 2 is an obvious chance at a redemption story, exploring the reasons he did the terrible things he did and building him back up. Maybe even rediscovering what it meant to be a hero in the first place, rather than just a corporate show. Instead, what do we get? A season-long side plot solely to humiliate him.
This is fun? You think water's supposed to be fun? Try swimming in the Mariana Trench, you little fucking idiots.
There was no arc or payoff, and the only scene with potential meaning was just a setup for a joke, rather than an exploration of his character. It hurts my brain to consider the fact that his best scene, finding out the truth about V, was more than likely not meant to be taken seriously, and it was just there as a joke. Even though he had the most interesting reaction of anyone in the Seven, yet they still don't bother to explore it in any serious manner. If this is how little they care about his character arc, then fine, but to waste an entire season on what was basically filler is just pretty disappointing. What a waste of a complex character and a great actor.
No, it's dark and it's cold, and you're so alone. You're so goddamn fucking alone.
And of course, you can't talk about wasted performances without talking about A-Train, a character whose actions literally kickstarted the plot and has now been rendered to a side character, whose only role is to facilitate plot points for other characters. And the moral conflict between him and Huey is never mentioned again.
What is this, man? I kill your girlfriend and you kill mine?
I didn't kill your girlfriend.
You used her! You put her in danger, and then you threw her out like she was fucking garbage! How does this not all start with you, Huey? The only difference between you and me is that I made a mistake. The shit that you did was on purpose. So who's worse?
And the most insulting part that makes it almost impossible to take him seriously is the heart condition that they turn on and off like a light switch to suit their needs. They use it to end the fight in season 1. Then he's in a coma. Then he just shows up perfectly fine. Then they show him having problems in the club. But when they need him to talk to Starlight, he's good. But then when we need him to find the boys in the sewer, it pops back up. It exists when it's convenient for the plot, and it's ignored if it gets in the way. One of the laziest things you can do as a writer. Yet they still use this heart condition as the reason he's kicked out of the Seven, which could have been an interesting arc to explore, because unlike the others, A-Train actually loved being a member of the Seven. It was a part of his identity, not just a brand to him. But much like the Deep, it's played off like a joke, and instead we are stuck with the irony of him not only being pushed aside by the characters in the show, but the writers as well. And if you don't believe me, look at this scene. The Seven are marching out after a speech from Homelander, a comment from Stormfront, reaction shots from Starlight and Maeve, but A-Train, the NPC, is zoned out, the only one not reacting to the events around him, because he's no longer a character, he's solely a plot device, being used by the writers. His wants and needs are no longer a factor. What a waste.
I tell you what, you get better and I'll teach you to run as fast as me.
Yeah?
Yeah?
You'll teach me to outrun cancer?
Which brings us to Black Noir, a character difficult to discuss when it comes to wasted development, as he's barely had any, and is mostly used for Vought's dirty missions. All of this worked like a charm, getting humor and action with a tiny bit of insight without him ever saying a word.
Some of you have been a little out of sorts. Erratic, unreliable, downright sloppy. Not you, Noir. You've been great.
Until we see him on a mission to find Butcher and track him to his aunts. But for some reason he doesn't inform the Seven or Vought. But this isn't a problem because Black Noir is a ninja of the highest caliber, and any plan made by him is a plan that I can... Are you fucking serious? This clown decides to stealth 100 on a rooftop in broad daylight in the suburbs in his all-black suit. All we know about this guy is that he's Vought's main assassin, and apparently this is how he gets the job done. No tactics, no technique, no Hokage level skills, nothing. He's a Foot Clan scrub who took some V. And if this scene couldn't get any stupider, Butcher calls the fire department, claiming that Noir won't kill them if there's any witnesses, even though he's the most wanted man in the country. And the Seven have already established that they don't mind killing criminals in public. None of this makes any sense, but the writers hope you forget that long enough for Butcher to blackmail him, threatening to put a picture of Homelander's son on the internet. And somehow this works. The power of plot armor and blackmail banishes Black Noir to the Shadow Realm, when in reality there's nothing stopping him from killing the boys in this scene. And the final Black Eye on Black Noir would have to be the first intriguing fight of the season, cut off when miserable Maeve teleports into the scene and shoves an almond joy down his throat, ending the action due to his tree nut allergy, that she somehow knows about and is cool with revealing. Even though they're in Vought Tower, even though there are cameras, not to mention the trackers, all of this is ignored in order to facilitate the desecration of Black Noir and make it impossible to take him seriously. Now this wouldn't be a huge deal because like I said, he isn't a major character in the show. But apparently, in the comics, Black Noir is a clone of Homelander and Vought's backup plan, a much more reasonable plan than the show's. And as much as I hate to reference source material as adaptations to stand on their own, when you compare Homelander clone to tree nut allergy, I think you can understand my frustration. Another wasted character. So how about we jump from a character who doesn't speak to a character who doesn't shut the fuck up? Her powers include sarcasm, flight, Palpatine lightning, a heightened sense of smell, and the ability to detect black people within a 32-meter radius. She's the Nazi experiment Stormfront, one of the most forced portrayals of a racist character I've ever seen, and an interesting showcase on how to manipulate your audience. She's introduced as a feisty, confident new member of the Seven, saying things that immediately make her appealing.
Well, Stormfront, congrats on the 7. Are you as excited to be here as I am?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Only to subvert our expectations by making her a cartoonishly racist psychopath with ties to Hitler. No understanding of her thought process, no exploration of her upbringing and why it would result in this type of behavior. Instead, they take the most simplistic approach possible.
Fucking yellow bastard.
A show that tries so hard to be edgy doesn't have the courage to make an actual offensive scene and portray what a real racist character would act like. There's so many ways this could have worked, but instead Stormfront is a joke of a character, providing no insight or meaningful message.
Why are you doing this to me, lady? Ain't you supposed to be a hero?
I am a hero for killing a black piece of shit like you.
It's scenes like this that show me that the writer's only intention was to get the knee-jerk reaction of her being a racist. A cheap way of creating a villain rather than writing a believable backstory. Taking the time for us to understand their motivation, but no, we get Stormfront and her bullshit instead.
They want to wipe us from this earth just because of the color of our skin. It's called white genocide.
The kid's like 10 years old. He's never left his house. What the fuck are you doing? Get out of my show. And with that, we're moving on to the characters that were completely ruined. Huey Campbell, one of the best examples of how to derail the arc of a well-constructed, relatable character. To say I was on board with Huey's motivation would be an understatement, especially after the convenience store scene in Season 1. The idea of someone virtually powerless but still willing to fight for a good cause is always endearing to watch, and that's exactly what Huey was, the unassuming, useful member of the boys. Only to be turned into a lost puppy and an emotional wreck this entire season. His mission to avenge Robin, which seemed to be his character's core motivation, feels like it's been completely forgotten this season, along with his drama and rivalry with A-Train. It's like his entire character has been reset to suit the plot of this season. We're forced to watch his brain rot away scene after scene. After the events of Season 1, the boys are wanted criminals, something that should be taken seriously. As we see Annie and Huey meet in the subway, a good idea. Except, the rest of the season not a single fuck is given. They meet in broad daylight, and somehow not a soul mentions on how Annie, one of the most famous superheroes in the world, and Huey, a wanted criminal, are chilling in a park. A major plot point of this season is the Supes getting caught by people who have cell phones, but they just ignore this logic when it suits them. How is this possible in the world they established in Season 1? Why even have them meet here when it contradicts everything that you've shown us? And this is capped off by Huey inviting her to take a road trip the day after Homelander almost killed her for being with him. Do you remember how big an issue the Tracker and Translucent was in Season 1? And now it's like they don't even exist. Now, as frustrating as it is to watch characters make stupid choices, my issue with Huey is much deeper than this. There's a scene where he tells Starlight about his mom and explains the origin of his clinginess, and getting a better understanding of what he means to Butcher. The writers decide to completely spit in the face of that sentiment. Instead of having him stay with the boys, who've treated him like family, and sticking to the plan that he and Annie risked their lives to pursue, they decide to have him join some company to fight Vought the right way, even though he tried that in Season 1. Even though he's no longer wanted, even though Annie risked everything for him, no, they decide that Huey isn't standing on his own 2 feet. They undermine all the character growth and everything he's been through just to portray him as this weak, pathetic creature when Huey has shown nothing but strength and determination. Refusing the money from Vought, confronting A-Train, killing Translucent. But no, let's ignore all that and disgrace his character and change his motivation and make him a pawn in your cliffhanger for Season 3. Fuck you. Huey was so much more than that. What a way to ruin a solid character and turn him into a contradictive joke.
Go! Take your fucking twink and get the fuck out of here!
Thank you for ruining my investment in him. I really enjoyed it. Now how about we talk about Kimiko, a dangerous Supe that the boys recruited in Season 1 after freeing her from her captors. She has superhuman strength, a ruthless demeanor, and the ability to heal. She refuses to speak due to her tragic past, but she's still an asset to the team, and develop a connection with Frenchie, a member of the boys. A simple and fascinating character that they still managed to fuck up by removing her brain and motivation in order to facilitate this stupid plot point. Allow me to explain. The boys discover there's a super terrorist in the city after seeing footage of a boat being thrown by a telekinetic. After investigating the scene, Kimiko somehow manages to find a piece of origami, confirming that the Supe was her brother. Now let's ignore the colossal convenience of her finding that in the wreckage, because this is a good thing. Kimiko can find her brother. She can help him. Warn the boys. She can stop any further chaos with this info. There's so much she can do. Yet she proceeds to do fuck all until it's all out of her control. Instead of using Google Translator, rather than looking up the word for brother in her native language, rather than even pointing at the screen frantically, giving them the opportunity to ask questions and maybe figuring it out, she writes boy girl on a piece of paper, and she only shows it to Frenchie, who obviously doesn't understand her gibberish, and she gets mad and storms off, rather than trying to explain it in a different method when her brother's life is at stake here. Kimiko, are you a stupid fuck? They establish that the boys are on a mission to capture her brother, a mission that could risk the lives of everyone she cares about, and still, not one logical attempt to communicate what she knows. Not one outburst from a character we know is emotional. She does nothing that the character Kamiko would have actually done in this situation, and we're forced to watch it all unfold. Frenchie even asked her if she's okay, and she shakes her head fine instead of taking this last opportunity to try. Kamiko, are you a stupid fuck? Her brother is eventually killed and framed, which is then used as motivation for Vought's anti-terrorist marketing campaign. Kamiko's stupidity has literally affected the plot and the world building, as all of this would have been avoided had she just told the boys right away, gave them the time to make a plan with this new info, maybe even recruit them properly. Instead, Kamiko was used by the writers to push the plot in an unearned direction, as there's only been one incident in the city so far, yet by the end of the season they're acting as if it's a full crisis. They wanted to implement supervillains, and instead of taking the time over the season to justify it, they forced it in through this stupid plot, and basically ruined Kamiko's character in the process. Because just days later she's making deals and working as an assassin for Frenchie's friend. How the fuck is she smart enough to make these kind of deals when she can't communicate basic information to save her brother's life? They turn her brain off when it suits them and then back on when they need her, destroying any understanding or investment one could have in this character, who I'm starting to think is only in the show so we can have gory scenes. We shouldn't expect anything more than that. What a shame.
I don't understand what you're saying because you won't teach me.
Now how about we talk about Starlight, the newest member of the Seven, and our other protagonist. And just like Huey, her arc is being derailed and her fundamental character traits from season 1 are being ignored. But unlike Huey, who I conclude is being used to set up a cliffhanger for season 3, I have no idea what the writers were thinking with this one. It just makes no sense. I can't figure out what they were trying to accomplish. Starlight's entire premise as a character is that she joined the Seven for altruistic reasons, to be a hero and make a difference. We see her balance her morals with her newfound situation and refuse to be like the others in the Seven. And after one season her fire has been burnt out and she's as jaded and miserable as the rest of them. In her pursuit to take down Vought, she spies on an old friend who works there in order to blackmail him and try to get her hands on a sample of V. An understandable play from her position, but the writers go out of their way to make her tell him that their friendship meant nothing. It's understandable for her to be a bit colder after season 1, but it seemed like a bit much for me, for a character who's supposed to represent the good side of humanity, but what the hell do I know? He gives her the V, inside Vought Towers, and then says if she asks him again, he's gonna tell everyone what she's doing. So why the hell didn't he do this in the first place? It's lines like this that show you the difference between a character and a plot device. Someone that exists solely as a tool to push the plot, and has no real thoughts on their own. A-Train catches her with the V and threatens to tell Homelander. But it's fine, she blackmails his ass too, threatening to tell everyone that he killed his girlfriend Popclaw. Now the reason this makes no sense is A-Train killed her to prevent the information about V from getting out, which is literally what she's trying to do. Vought would actually praise him for this act of loyalty, but remember, A-Train isn't a character anymore, he's a plot device. His wants and needs are irrelevant, his brain is disconnected, so Starlight's plan works, and she releases the info about V to the press. We see them finally address the tracker and have Frenchie remove it with a tiny saw. I have no idea how this is possible when 50 caliber bullets don't even phase her, and no, they don't bother to explain it. Almost as if inconsistency was the theme for this season. And if you don't believe me, we find out that she can only use her powers near a source of electricity. Instead of using the phones, or the car battery, or moving closer to the building, the show once again ignores several established options in order to get their scenes. And what a scene it was! For anyone not convinced, I'm about to describe an abomination. In a desperate attempt to rush Huey to the hospital, Starlight and Butcher wave down a car. As the man steps out, Butcher, the rocket scientist, says,
FBI, need to commandeer your vehicle, bit of an emergency.
Jesus, what happened to him?
Long story there.
prompting the man to ask for some ID, which Butcher clearly doesn't have, claiming he left it in his other pants. And even though he can clearly tell that they're lying, this kind soul still offers to give them a ride.
Look, I can get you guys to the hospital, but we're out in the middle of nowhere here. I'm not going to give you my car.
And then instead of taking this reasonable offer, Big Brain Billy literally threatens the man, and is stupid enough to reveal his gun, forcing the man to reach for his in defense. And instead of trying to de-escalate the situation, he walks him down, gun in hand, while Starlight does fuck all, and Huey is literally dying. Now rather than breaking down Butcher's stupidity further, as his time will come, I'd like to focus on Starlight, the girl who wanted to be a hero so she can save lives and make a difference. The girl who spent her nights listening to police radios just for the chance to fight crime, decides to do this.
What the hell are you? No!
Fucking murks him, cracking his head over the concrete floor as Butcher looks on in approval, even though his entire character is supposed to be about stopping Soups from hurting innocent people. Yet he watches a soup kill an innocent person who was literally trying to help them, and neither of them give a fuck. What the hell is happening? Let me make this crystal clear. If this scene doesn't affect your investment or at least your understanding of these two characters, then you have no business watching TV. Find something else. In a show all about morality and the consequences for actions, we have a scene that seems to forget that and destroy two of the main characters in the process. Annie could have tried to talk the man down. She could have said, "Hey, I'm fucking Starlight, a member of the Seven." She could have stepped in front of the gun, for Christ's sake, she's bulletproof. All of these options were right in front of you, but you chose the one path that got you your scene the fastest because you're lazy hacks. Annie wouldn't fucking do this. This is just stupid. And once again, the disregard for innocent life in order to have a shocking scene continues. Something that has bothered me for years and is not a problem isolated to the boys whatsoever. For example, do you remember Eddie the One True King from Jurassic Park 2? A man who laid his life on the line, slipping and falling through the rain and mud, desperately trying to attach a cable to save his friend's life. Alone in the darkness, surrounded by dinosaurs with seconds to spare, yet he still got the job done. This man should have been knighted for this act of bravery. There should have been songs written about this man. Every man, woman, and child should know his name. But instead, the writers have him viciously ripped in half immediately after. He doesn't even get a thank you. This is what came to mind when I watched this man die in the middle of the road. You both deserve so much better. And as for Starlight, what do you even say about her? Other than I have no idea who she is or what she wants anymore. And if they wanted to push her character in a darker direction, they could have taken their time, ensure it made sense, establish the development. But no, we get Annie Targaryen instead, and any investment I had in her is down the drain. Good luck in season 3, you're a killer now. You better get used to looking at them.
You know what I was thinking when I was looking at him? Why'd you pull the gun, you stupid fuck? That's all.
And with that, we have just two left. Billy Butcher, the baby killer. A man without a code. A man I could no longer describe. He is introduced in season 1 after finding out Huey refused Vought's payoff. And after joining up with his friend Frenchie, they managed to find a way to kill Translucent, a member of the Seven. They firmly established his main motivation is to stop Soups from hurting innocent people, even revealing that his wife was raped by Homelander to further cement his motivation. And he has a personal mission to take him down. Such an amazing character, played by the legendary Carl Urban. It's so hard not to like him.
You could take the blue pill. Or was it the red pill? Anyway, take the other pill and quit being a cunt.
Which pill do you want me to take?
Just quit being a cunt, that's what I'm saying.
Except when you wrap your head around the fact that Butcher, a man who's supposed to be about saving innocent people, willingly blew up a baby and nobody is holding him accountable for it. Not the boys, not his conscience. Something that should be a defining part of his arc is being ignored by the writers. We find out in episode 2 that the baby was found 17 miles away and Butcher wakes up in a parking lot. Both thanks to the sudden heroism of Homelander. Now let me break this down further for anyone confused as to why this is a massive fuck up. Homelander hated that baby, couldn't stand the sight of it, blamed it for stealing Stillwell's attention. He just melted her face in front of it. This man is mildly unhinged. So why the hell did he save the baby? The explosion wouldn't have done shit to him and Butcher knows this, yet he suicide bombs the room out of childish spite even though the baby was still there. Do you remember how in Scarface, after all the terrible and monstrous things that Tony did, he still established there was a line he wouldn't cross, even if it cost him everything? So you're telling me that Butcher is worse than Tony Montana? If he's willing to let a baby die in an act of rebellion that accomplishes nothing, then what isn't he willing to do? Where's the line with this character? How do you possibly balance him going forward? Or have any understanding of him as a person? This is the kind of choice that should weigh on a character's mind, but is never brought up again the entire season. If you match that with the fact that Homelander's amazing feat of saving the baby is also never mentioned, it genuinely makes me think that the writers kinda forgot about the baby, and having Homelander save it was only to stop Butcher from having baby blood on his hands. But he still made the choice. He spends the rest of the season making stupid, reckless, selfish choices, trying to shoot Kamiko's brother right in front of her, punching Huey for jeopardizing his chance at getting back at Becca even though Huey didn't even know, flipping off cameras and visiting family members even though he's a wanted criminal, making plans to separate Becca from her child as if that was ever gonna work, getting into bar fights when his stupid plan fails. Did I mention he's wanted? I hope I didn't forget that part. You know, I gotta say, this isn't the impression I got from him in season 1. I don't remember him being stupid and definitely not this reckless, but whatever the plot needs, I guess. But I think the saddest part of all this is that after Becca's death and all the potential storytelling with Butcher being put in the situation of raising the son of a man he hates in order to keep a promise to the woman he loves, the man who hates Soups raising one as a son, there's so much you can do with that, but instead they ship Ryan away. All the criminal charges on the boys are dropped and we're basically back to square one. What the fuck was the point of this season? I already went over how in addition to all this, his character was destroyed in the murder scene. But now with Becca and Ryan being taken out of the picture, what is left for him? What is his goal now? If all we have left is that he wants to stop Soups, then the season was basically filler. Yet they managed to take one of the most interesting characters, destroy any sense of morals or altruism, waste his plot potential, ruin any sense of consistency and intelligence, and left him with nothing. Thank you for fucking over such a cool character. I pray you can figure something out for him in season 3.
Fucking diabolical.
Now, not only is it difficult to explain all the damage to these characters, but it's even harder to decide the order. So much wasted potential in all areas, but the one they ruined the most this season would have to be Homelander. The most interesting character in the show. The reason I started watching in the first place. The initial premise is simple. What if Superman was a sociopath?
All of you, stay back! You stay the fuck back or I'll laser you, goddammit! I'll laser every fucking one of you!
Watching this man wield the power of a god while also seeing the honest effect it has on his ego. The leader of the Seven, portrayed as the face of a nation while also hiding his god complex behind his charisma and accomplishments. One of the best villains on TV. Or at least, he was, as this season the writers had no idea what they were doing with him. One of the greatest examples I've ever seen of undermining the work put in to make him go from a terrifying force to an embarrassing fool in one season. They seem to have no idea who he is or what he wants, and we're forced to watch him bounce around the plot like a pinball with no clear direction of his own. Allow me to explain. We already went over how him saving the baby makes no sense and was never addressed, adding questions before the season even begins. And to add to my confusion, his first scene is him drinking Stillwell's breast milk, which is hard to understand after seeing him melt her face off, but here we are. We see him introduced to a potential new member of the Seven.
Hey, guys, I just have one question, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah? All right. So, what happens if, I don't know, I do this?
What the fuck am I looking at? Homelander's whole thing is his image and being praised. It's literally the reason he let the plane crash in season 1 because it would have been bad PR if he couldn't save them all. So why the hell would he do this to someone who's well known enough to apply for the Seven, when it accomplishes nothing and could potentially cause him a lot of problems? I watched this man be calculating and cunning for an entire season just to make me question everything about him within 2 scenes. What is happening? Season 1 ended with a massive cliffhanger, with Homelander finding out that he had a son Vought has been hiding from him. Their master plan, and seemingly the only counter to him, especially since Black Noir sucks. I thought this was supposed to be a disaster for Vought that would have significant repercussions. But then they just show Homelander chilling out, trying to be a dad, playing catch with his son, while Becca freaks out inside the house, and Vought does absolutely nothing. She calls them, asks them what they're gonna do about this, and they literally tell her, wait it out. Hopefully he gets bored. What? Is this a joke? Is this Vought Enterprise or the First Order? Was Stillwell carrying this whole company on her back and it's falling apart now that she's gone? What the fuck is happening? We get several scenes of him bonding with Ryan to no avail, culminating with him pushing him off a rooftop to try to get him to learn how to fly. Then after fucking that up, he gives a speech to unite the Seven and remind them they're a family. Even though he doesn't care about any of them, he was just trying to be a father 5 minutes ago. Then they spend an entire episode embarrassing his character, having him enraged with jealousy over Stormfront's memes and success, and using Doppelganger to pose as Stillwell. For the sake of a joke, you're making it even harder to understand his mind state and thought process. Why would he kill her in the first place if he's so attached to her that he's willing to do something as pathetic as this? All just for the symbolic shot of him killing himself in a dress, cementing that he doesn't need anyone, only himself. Only to have him fall in love with Stormfront in the very next episode. What are you doing? He almost has his career ruined after getting caught on camera accidentally killing a kid, and he's saved due to the magic of memes, and that's enough for him to be all over her. And just days later, he's killing a man in the street and shagging on his blood, in broad daylight. How? How does this make any sense? How is this possible in a show that's supposed to be about consequences for actions? How are you ignoring the world building just for a joke? There is a man laying on the ground, dead, and 2 of the most famous people in the world are fucking over his body and nobody gives a shit. Nobody's saying anything. The writers change their mind again and the love affair is cut short after she stands him up and he burns down his trailer in a tantrum. It wasn't meant to be, I guess. But then she tells him she's a Nazi and they can rule the galaxy together, so he's back in the game. Then after seemingly moving on from this plotline entirely, he's suddenly back in dad mode, in a scene that highlights how much potential this plot actually had if they could make up their goddamn minds on what to do with him.
I didn't just wake up one day and fly out the door. It's not how it works. I had to learn. Only I didn't have anyone to teach me because the doctors, the people that raised me were scared of me, so they kept their distance. And I had to figure it all out by myself, see? Well, you don't have to go through any of that. I'll teach you.
Really?
I love you.
Who is this man and where has he been all season? You've created a million questions after switching his motivation back and forth, but the one thing that seems to be clear is that he wants to be a father, and it's barely explored outside of scenes like this.
Strongest man in the world and you're scared of a little boy.
And after an entire season of wasted potential and flip-flopping, they turn off his brain entirely and teleport miserable Maeve into the scene to set up the final blackmail of the season. She tells him that you're a bad man, and if he doesn't stop being bad, she's gonna show everyone this.
You're gonna stop hunting Starlight. You're gonna leave me and Elena alone.
Where the fuck did she come from? She can't fly. She's not a speedster. Even if she leaped through the air like the Incredible Hulk, someone would have heard it. Something. Anything. But no, instead they just copy and paste her into the scene. They don't give a fuck about geography, or logistics, or rules, or powers. It's a clown show at this point. How does she think a video is gonna keep him away forever? What's her next move? Why didn't she do this years ago after they established how much she's seen? Why doesn't Homelander just melt the phone? Or her? He can literally holdo maneuver through her face. There's so many options here, yet he does nothing. Even though this is the one thing keeping him away from his son and getting revenge on Butcher. The same man who was just having sex in public while a man died on the fucking ground is now too concerned with his image being ruined to pull the trigger. And even after all the scenes with Stormfront, he barely even seems to care that she got Anakin'd. So not only did they give him multiple storylines, none of them had any meaningful payoff. They remove his brain in order to get the scenes they want, and we're forced to watch in horror as he bends the knee to miserable Maeve and is forced to stay away from Starlight and the boys. They have total control over him. Yet the season ends with him jerking off over a cliff saying he can do whatever he wants, even though the entire point of this fucking finale was that he can't. What is this stupid shit? The mystery and restraint that made him so terrifying in season 1 has been replaced with jokes and embarrassment. Removing the intelligence and the intimidation of the main villain is the stupidest thing you could have done, as he's deeply rooted in the plot, the world building, and all the major characters. He's the one person you have to have a clear goal on, and you fucked him in one season.
You blew it! You had it all and you blew it!
Thank you for destroying my investment in him. I really appreciate it. Now maybe character assassination isn't enough for you. Maybe you're not invested in these characters and just want to see superheroes doing superhero things, and the finer details don't interest you. Maybe you're thinking none of this actually matters. Well, thankfully, I have another way to describe the fuckery of this season to you. Because the writers have blessed me with a gift. A scene so fucking stupid, so broken and ridiculous I could barely believe my eyes. A barren wasteland, devoid of any logic or consistency. A scene that established that there are no longer any rules, and anything you think you know doesn't matter because these writers just don't care. Allow me to introduce you to the boat scene. Let's begin. The boys are speeding away on a yacht with Kimiko's brother after he knocked a police helicopter out of the sky. Even though it's the 7 he's after, he just slaughters them anyway, so much for not wanting to hurt anyone. A mile out from the coast, something hits the boat, and suddenly an army of sharks is on their tail. Butcher tells MM to take the wheel, and actually tries to shoot down an army of sharks. Butcher is a trained shooter. He knows about bullet drop in water. Does he really think this will work? He literally gets off 3 shots before another shark rams the boat and knocks him on his ass. And the brother, who was so eager to kill cops 5 seconds ago, does absolutely nothing to help. The boat has been compromised and they are absolutely screwed. There is nothing they can do. Oh, they have another boat. A tiny, stationary boat. And for anyone out there thinking, well, a smaller boat is faster. Let me repeat, it's not fucking moving. The sharks should have shred that thing to pieces, but we need our scene, so they put the sharks on pause as they all hop in and speed off. They're almost at the coast when suddenly a sperm whale breaches the surface, and is none other than Ocean Man himself, the Deep.
Ah, did you see that jerk?
What the fuck am I looking at? He dives back under and beaches the poor whale in order to strike a pose and block their path. What exactly is the plan here, sir? What planet are we on? What the fuck is this scene? The boys should be a mangled mess, but they're fine. Kamiko's brother lands comfortably outside like it's nap time. They show the back of Kamiko's head, the one person who should actually be okay, but we don't even get a reaction shot from her. Huey sits in the whale perfectly fine, nobody's fucking injured. And then we have the Deep, a former member of the Seven, a man strong enough to go to the bottom of the Mariana Trench, but somehow gets knocked out by falling off of a whale. They spit on the rules of physics by not only having him fall in the wrong direction, but he somehow stays glued to the whale throughout the crash and is the last one to fall. He's unconscious before he even lands. What the fuck are you doing to my show? They cut to black to make sure you don't have any time to process how stupid all this is. And Big Brain Billy, the same guy who takes a shot at any soup he can regardless of the situation, walks right by the Deep's unconscious body instead of putting a bullet in his head and goes into the storm drain. MM attends to Huey, who apparently has a death wish. And then they cut to the boys casually strolling in the storm drain, even though the Seven and the police are on their tail. They should be fleeing for their lives. They have Stormfront, who could fly, Black Noir, the elite ninja assassin, allegedly, A-Train, who is a speedster, but most importantly they have Homelander, who not only can fly faster than the speed of sound, but has X-ray vision and super hearing. The show is over. The boys are dead. Deader than that poor whale. There's nothing that could possibly save them. Except plot armor. Thick, juicy plot armor. When writers write themselves into a corner and don't have the talent or patience to fix the issues preventing them from having the payoff that they want for their characters, so they just say fuck it and pull some bullshit out of their ass instead. So A-Train, who's been fine this entire scene, is conveniently having art issues. They show Homelander walking instead of flying. Maeve and Black Noir just disappear. They are never seen again, dropped into the character fridge because they had no idea what to do with them. And somehow, it's Starlight, who is also walking, that manages to find them. The one person who isn't trying to kill them. How convenient. But remember, Huey has a death wish, so this jackass says,
"You got my message."
And somehow, Homelander doesn't hear it. Even though he can eavesdrop on a phone call in Vought Towers, he can't hear Huey in a fucking sewer. I would have heard that shit. You don't need superpowers. He was right around the corner. Starlight blasts Huey when she sees Homelander coming, who then tells her to kill him. But Butcher says,
"Eat this motherfucker."
I'm sorry, what? Do these writers remember Maeve's opening scene stopping an armored truck with her ass? Do you remember Homelander saying that if he tried to lift the plane, he would go right through it? Did you even watch the first season before making this shit? How the fuck could this possibly stop him after what we've seen him do? This shouldn't have done a damn thing to him, but he's down there for the rest of the scene. In the fridge with Maeve and Black Noir. They put Homelander in the fucking fridge. The brother takes his chance to escape and Kamiko goes after him. And they run right into Stormfront, who for some reason is topside, and the rest of the Seven are nowhere to be seen. She blasts them into a home of a family so we could see Stormfront killing black people to set us up for the climax. Gotta slip that in. And the brother, who showed no fear against Homelander, cowers on the ground instead of using his powers that he's been spamming in every other scene. Kamiko hits her into a wall and then they run as she gets distracted killing another black dude for no reason. Then they melt the side of a building. When she hits the boys with her electricity, it tickles them, but buildings get melted. That makes sense to me. He leaps to another rooftop, leaving Kamiko behind to get sucker punched and beat down by Stormfront. And once again, instead of using his powers on her, he decides to tackle her. We have seen this guy attack the boys, the police, Homelander, even Kamiko, but they turn his powers off anytime he's near Stormfront, and then he tries to double leg her instead. This shouldn't have done shit to her if she's strong enough to beat up Kamiko, but like I've been trying to prove, nothing makes sense in this scene. And even after establishing it's his fingers that he needs to use his powers, he just doesn't use them, and he gets his wrist snapped instead. It's also we can see Stormfront call him a yellow bastard. Kamiko is slugged and can't get up without a teammate because she didn't bring Unbreakable. Homelander returns from the fridge, Stormfront literally forgets Kamiko exists, and Homelander can't hear her breathing because his powers make no fucking sense. The rest of the Seven are nowhere to be seen, and they never cut back to the boys. This scene was a fucking nightmare. To inject this many contradictions into a single episode really highlights the overall problem with this show. The desire to shock the audience with gore is more important than the logic of the scene. Jokes are prioritized over character development. Brains and powers are turned on and off depending on the plot. The world building is a joke, with Vought Enterprise being infiltrated by Huey Campbell, and the citizens being treated like NPCs that can have any opinion swayed by memes, and the boys' wanted status being ignored the entire season. A superhero and a wanted criminal should not be able to sit down for tea and not raise a single eyebrow. This should never happen in a show that makes sense. And even with all that, there's still the people who loved it, and wouldn't be bothered by any of these issues, and would be eager to brush it off as nitpicks and just enjoy it for what it is. And there's nothing wrong with that. But my question to those people is, why can't we have both? Your experience would only be enhanced by logical writing, and everything you enjoyed about it would still be intact. All it does is help bring it to a wider audience so more people can enjoy it. So instead of ignoring the glaring issues to preserve your idealized version of the show, we need to address the epidemic of bad writing, and have better standards, rather than just consuming any content given. There's so much potential within this genre, but if we continue to accept garbage writing, then that's exactly what we'll get.